All of those stories coming up this morning, and joining me to talk about it, Fox Business Network's Dagen McDowell, Recon Capital Chief Investment Officer Kevin Kelly, and National Review reporter and Fox News contributor Kat Timpf. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
See
you. Good morning.
All I want for Christmas is to join that favorite men list that you guys had. Mike Baker and Anthony yesterday. You said they're two of your favorite guys. So if we're speaking of Christmas, I want to join that list.
I
heard you.
I have also one of our You're our favorite.
That's not what I was going to say to him. I was going to say we have a step-by-step plan to achieving that high rank.
Okay.
I will fill you in the next commercial
I'm pretty low, huh?
Okay,
Oh,
no, that's really good. That's right. Oh, that is cute. You were watching us yesterday, Kevin.
Of course, every day.
You are the best.
Yeah. And I tweet religiously, on my MyPillow.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
We have a lot to come this morning. President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Pence head to Indianapolis to announce keeping more than 1,000 Carrier jobs at the Carrier AC plant in the United States. Trump tweeted this last night. Look forward to going to Indiana tomorrow in order to be with the great workers of Carrier. They will sell many air conditioners. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest also weighed in on the deal.
The president-elect has indicated that he deserves credit for that announcement. If he is successful in doing that 804 more times, then he will meet the record of manufacturing jobs that were created in the United States while President Obama was in office.
Additionally, Trump is kicking off his thank you tour in Ohio tonight. He plans to visit a mix of states over the coming weeks. Joining us right now is former Georgia Congressman and Trump supporter Jack Kingston. Congressman Kingston, good morning to you. Good to see you.
Good morning to you, Maria. I want to be on that list too, Kevin. I don't know how you do it, but
oh my goodness.
I want to work it.
No, well, you're there already. But look, Congressman, isn't it amazing that Trump is certainly doing a lot before his inauguration? What's your take on this?
You know, he's hitting the ground running. He's fulfilling promises. He's showing that he's in connection with the American people. And, you know, one of the statistics that we kept saying during this campaign is that there were 94 million people in America who were unemployed or underemployed, 43 million on food stamps, and household income has fallen from $57,000 to $53,000 in a 15-year period of time. And this is real. So when he goes out there and he connects and saves these 1,000 jobs, it's not just about Ohio. It's not just about Carrier. It's about the American worker, about the American manufacturing base. So it is an absolute great thing for the whole country.
Congressman, it's Kevin. I'm curious, is your take, given that this was such a politicized deal and that you've seen basically everyone was thinking that the workers were marginalized by Carrier. I mean, it works out to be like 2 cents a share on their earnings next year. It was only $65 million that they were going to save. They make over $56 billion in revenue for United Technologies. Are we going to start to see a wave of other companies take into consideration their government contracts at risk should they move jobs? Is that what's really the tone here and the messaging with this deal?
You know, I think the messaging is a lot bigger than, say, the United Technology, Pratt Whitney angle. I think it's the fact that they're saying, look, we're going to get Obamacare off of our backs. In some form, we're going to have health care. It's going to be a lot better. It's going to be market-driven. We're going to have more choices in energy because Mr. Trump is going to unleash American energy. He's going to rebuild pipelines and let the cost of energy go down. The regulatory burden of the EPA and the bureaucrats out of Washington micromanaging businesses, that will be gone. And the tax code is going to be simplified and taxes will be lowered so we can compete internationally. So there's really a whole basket full of things that the Trump-Pence administration brings to American businesses. And for manufacturers, they're responding very, very positively. We're already seeing it. Just the optimism of so many wins on so many levels for American businesses to stay here and to reinvest and to expand.
Congressman, although important and symbolic what was done with Carrier and keeping these jobs here in the United States, how do you respond to the criticism that the president-elect and his vice president are really overstepping in terms of business intervention? Better to just step back, implement policies, but the fact that they approached Carrier individually is not a conservative move in the minds of some, at least.
It's not, and I have a degree in economics, and I know that the best macro approach is to just say, let's have good policy so that the system can work, and I think you're going to see a lot of that. But I also want to point out something that Marcy Kaptur, a veteran congresswoman from Ohio, made this statement yesterday. She said Hillary Clinton came to her district and stood out on the busiest corner of an Amtrak station in Toledo and did not talk about infrastructure. She talked about Warren Buffett. And Marcy Kaptur said, nobody knows who Warren Buffett is, but that was the Hillary Clinton message, whereas the Donald Trump message was, your jobs are real, your jobs and your lives are relevant to me, and we're going to make changes that are going to be better for you. And so it's such an immediate connection with the American people. But I do think from a macro level, lower cost energy, a better regulatory burden, a better tax structure is going to make all these businesses say that's what we really want in the big picture.
Yeah, I had that thought myself, kind of thinking, well, if Obama had done something like this, maybe we would be saying don't intervene just because it's Trump and it's that kind of job, it's the manufacturing job. People have a different view.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's the point. I mean, Congressman, you bring up the point that I think has changed this election and this whole campaign, and that is small business and mid-cap businesses are desperate for these economics and a plan where you are getting these kinds of incentives to actually keep business in the U.S. Yesterday, we spoke with the president-elect's picks for Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, and he also talked about the desire to bring back jobs to the U.S. Listen to what he had to say.
I mean, if you look at Apple, Apple's kind of the classic company. They're sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars of cash, and they go out and borrow money against their overseas bank accounts. This makes no sense. And they've said the reason why they're doing that is because of like high corporate tax rates. So we think there's going to be hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars that's going to come back, and that's going to create infrastructure and create jobs.
You think it'll be that significant?
I absolutely do.
Really?
If you look at the Reagan economy, we saw the same thing of businesses that got excited that Washington was going to be working for them, not against them. Washington was going to be out of the way, and so that free enterprise could do its thing. And that's what makes the economy tick. And I'd say Carrier is more of a byproduct of the new optimism and the new regulatory environment rather than, the centerpiece of it. It's really just a byproduct, and it's a very good byproduct.
I always love hearing more than creating jobs, allowing jobs to be created. More,
absolutely.
my view.
I think it's important
and
to note
actually, that should be applied to the infrastructure plan. Is that rather than talking about like a real conservative, and Art Laffer has expressed this repeatedly, don't look at infrastructure spending as a jobs bill. That is the wrong way to approach it. If you're going to spend on infrastructure, it should be to make doing business easier in this country and to facilitate those jobs created by actual businesses, not the government.
Yeah, and that's what they also talked about yesterday, this infrastructure plan where they're going to be putting not only investments, money to work, but jobs, creating new jobs within construction. Commerce Secretary Selection Wilbur Ross was here yesterday. He talked about also privatizing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac as part of the economic plan. Listen.
The average small bank now has more compliance people than lending officers. That's not the way to run a bank. Government is not the right way to allocate capital. Private sector is the right way. Look at Fannie and Freddie, the two things that government had the most influence on. They're not exactly role models.
So what do you think about that? Do you think that's possible? I mean, right after Wilbur Ross said that, Steven Mnuchin jumped in and said, we are definitely taking Fannie and Freddie out of government. We're going to privatize these two institutions, which is a big job. They're enormous.
You know what? A lot of these government-sponsored enterprises like Fannie and Freddie were supposed to be backups to the mortgage system, kind of the last choice, but they actually became the go-to areas where real estate depended on them, and that wasn't what the market was supposed to be about. So I think stepping back and saying, what we really should do is let community banks make lending decisions again and not have to clear it through their regional offices and through bureaucrats in Washington, but let the local bankers make these decisions because they grew up with you, they know their community, they know who's making money, who's not making money, and I think that's one of the greatest signals that we're going to have in the Trump administration is letting community banks get unshackled, because Dodd-Frank has actually created winners and losers, and the winners have been the bigger banks have gotten a bigger share of the market, and I do think that we've got to let the community banks be empowered, because that money spent locally, money staying locally will increase the economy all over.
For sure. before. And Kevin Kelly, that's exactly what Stephen Mnuchin said yesterday. In terms of rolling back Dodd-Frank, the goal is to make sure these smaller banks start lending again, and the larger banks.
You have to. I mean, you look at Dodd-Frank. There's over 22,000 pages of regulations that came out of an alphabet soup of bureaucratic organizations that shouldn't be making these laws. Talk about the CFPB. They're going anything from the interchange fees when it comes to credit cards as well as debit cards. We've had regional banker after regional banker on the show talk about how if they hit a certain level of assets, then they've got new regulations coming on top of them from the OCC, from the CFPB, everything else. And it's just hampering their growth.
Dagen, what did they say, 6,000 regulations in the last 2 years?
Right. I'll point out the Wall Street Journal editorial page was lukewarm on the Treasury and Commerce picks. And you can read the editorial, but one thing that they took issue with that Steve Mnuchin did say, which you just brought up, is he's talking about bank lending. They said, listen, Dodd-Frank is a law that is surely way too complicated, but the amount of bank lending should not be decided by regulators. They're like, have like
the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, like get the government out of the way, but politicians and the regulators need to stop trying to tell banks how much they should lend. And I just say, you can read through it. They, you know, nitpick a little bit. But
they said it's underwhelming.
They said Trump's money meant an underwhelming pair of nominees.
Wow. Congressman, good to see you, sir. Thank you so much, Jack.
Well, it's good to be with you guys.
Have a great
Let's
day.
make that list, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks.
Congressman Jack Kingston, you're the best. We'll see you soon. Stay tuned at 6:30 this morning. We will talk with a Carrier employee about Trump's announcements. We'll see what the talk is within Carrier and the ranks there.